It started with a text. Not just any text, the kind that looks ordinary on the surface, but something in your gut pulls back the curtain and says, this isn't what it seems. It was from my wife, Elise. Let's do dinner Friday. Just us. My treat. We need to talk. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, she's gonna drop the hammer. And maybe you're right. But at that moment, I didn't panic. I actually smiled. We hadn't done, just us, in months. Work had been draining the life out of both of us, and maybe, just maybe, she was ready to throw a rope back across the canyon that had grown between us. I even told my buddy Miles about it at lunch that day. She's taking me out. Said it's serious. He raised a brow. Serious like couples therapy? Or serious like, I met someone named Chad who listens to podcasts with me serious? I laughed it off. Nah, man. It's Elise. She hates people named Chad. Miles just smirked and poked at his salad like it had personally offended him. All right. But you let me know if I need to bring a baseball bat or a bottle of scotch after. One for action. One for morning. Noted, I said. I spent the rest of that week in a weird state of cautious optimism. Elise and I had been together for 8 years, married 5, and while things weren't picture-perfect lately, we weren't on fire either. We were fine. You know, the load the dishwasher in silence kind of fine. The pass the remote without touching kind. Roommates with rings. Still, that Friday, I put on a button-up she used to say made my shoulders look dangerously employable, and I even hit the barbershop on my lunch break. Not because I needed to impress her, I just wanted to remind her. Remind her who she married, what we built, what it meant. The restaurant she picked was this small, dimly lit Italian place on the edge of town. The kind with candles that flicker a little too dramatically and servers who hover just long enough to make you think they're eavesdropping. Romantic. Private. When I walked in, I didn't see her at first. I scanned the room, heart tapping a hopeful rhythm in my chest. And then I saw her. She was already seated, hair curled, lips painted a shade of red I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. And sitting next to her, not across, was a man. Tall, confident posture, collared shirt unbuttoned just enough to make you hate him on sight. They were laughing. I hadn't even sat down yet, and I already knew this wasn't dinner. This was theater, and I was the final act. But I didn't storm out. Oh no. I smiled, took a deep breath, walked over, and said with the calmest voice I could manage. Evening, Elise. I see you brought a +1. She tilted her head, eyes bright with the same excitement she used to save for weekend road trips. Logan, this is Davis. We work together. You've heard me mention him. He stood and extended a hand like we were networking. Good to finally meet you. Oh, I shook it. I smiled. I even laughed. Because when you're walking into your own ambush, the last thing you want to do is flinch. Inside? I was doing the math. His chair too close. Her hand barely brushing his. The smile she gave him that I hadn't seen in months. It didn't add up to friendship. It added up to foreshadowing. I didn't know the full story yet, but I knew enough. Still, I played along. I sat. I let the curtain rise. Because when someone invites you to your own betrayal, you don't storm the stage. You watch. You learn your lines. And when it's your time, you rewrite the whole damn play. You ever smile so hard your jaw starts to hurt? That's what I was doing across that dinner table. Smiling like a man who didn't just walk into a live taping of Watch Your Wife soft launch her affair. Davis, that was his name, right? Was charming in that overly practiced kind of way. The kind of guy who laughs at his own jokes and makes intense eye contact with waiters to prove he's present. He had one of those leather watch bands that screams I own multiple grooming products. So, Logan, he said, stabbing a ravioli, Elise tells me you work in architecture. That must be detail-oriented. Yeah, I said, sipping my water so I wouldn't say what I really wanted to. Structure's kind of my thing. Keeps things standing, you know? He nodded, smiled. Didn't get it. Elise was quiet through most of the meal, which wasn't like her. She usually carried conversations with the grace of a talk show host. But tonight, she let Davis lead. She just smiled at him, touched his arm a little too often, laughed at things I'd said in better ways 100 times before. And me? I asked questions, made jokes. I even complimented the gnocchi. Because if I was going down, I was going down composed. I wasn't going to be the guy who flipped the table and stormed off. No, I was going to make them wonder if I already knew. Because I did know. Not the specifics, not yet, but the vibe? It was louder than the jazz music playing in the background. About halfway through dinner, Elise finally cleared her throat. That's when I knew the main event was coming. Logan, she began, resting her hands on the table, I wanted to have this dinner to be honest with you. I nodded slowly. That's good. Honesty's the foundation of any strong structure, right? She blinked, caught it, ignored it. I think we've grown apart. We've been drifting for a while now, and I didn't want to just end things without explaining. I've started seeing someone. It's recent. I looked at Davis. Recent, huh? He gave a half smile. This wasn't the plan. But sometimes you connect with someone and Davis, I cut in, holding up a hand. Just stop. Let her finish. Elise swallowed. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. She looked down, searching for a word. I needed to feel alive again. That one stung. Not because she said it, but because she meant it. So I nodded, let it land, took a breath, and said, well, I appreciate the clarity. I really do. That seemed to catch them both off guard. Davis shifted in his chair. Elise blinked, like she expected tears or a tantrum. But I didn't give them either. Just a steady gaze and a polite nod, like they had told me the weather forecast. Then I stood. Dinner's on me, I said. Wouldn't want to break tradition. Elise's mouth opened, then closed. And Davis? He tried to offer his hand again. I didn't take it this time. Instead, I leaned in, dropped my voice low, and said something just for him. Enjoy your turn. Then I left. Outside, the air hit like a slap. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there under the streetlight, heart beating like a war drum, realizing what just happened. I wasn't married anymore. Not really. But I wasn't broken either. No, that part was coming later. And when it came, I wouldn't be the one bleeding. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying into a pint of ice cream or tearing old wedding photos in half like some melodramatic movie montage. No, I just couldn't shut my brain off. Everything Elise said kept circling in my head. I needed to feel alive again. Funny thing to say to the man who paid off her student loans, fixed her mother's roof, and literally built her a reading nook during quarantine because she said she missed Paris cafes. But sure, I was the dead one. The next morning, I brewed my coffee extra strong, sat at the kitchen island, and looked around like I was seeing the house for the first time. Our house. The one we picked together. But suddenly, it felt like a crime scene. Still, cold, too clean. Then I saw her phone. She had left it charging on the counter overnight, like she always did. Only this time, I didn't feel guilty picking it up. I wasn't snooping. I was verifying. She had no lock. Never did. Said it was pointless. That morning, I silently thanked her for that laziness. First stop, messages. Not to me, those were dry as toast. But Davis? Oh, Davis. My man was poetic. Lines like, last night was a dream. I can't believe we got away with it under his nose again. Soon, baby. He'll be gone, and we'll have the house. God, I wish he was dumb enough to fight me. You'd like that, wouldn't you? I stared at the screen for a full minute. No blinking. No breathing. Just watching the pieces fall into place. This wasn't a spark between two coworkers. This wasn't, I didn't mean for this to happen. This was premeditated. Coordinated. A long con with good lighting and bad morals. And here's the kicker. There were photos. Screenshots of Zillow listings. Plans. My home. The one I paid for. I scrolled through more threads. She'd been complaining about me to her friends, too. Playing the victim. Calling me emotionally distant, inattentive, even paranoid. Which, to be fair, I had become paranoid. But not without cause. I wasn't angry. I was something colder. Something steadier. I backed everything up. Took photos with my own phone. Copied messages. Sent them to a secret email I created years ago during a nasty work dispute. I never thought I'd need it for this. And then I remembered something else. The prenup. See, back when Elise and I were still planning our wedding, I brought it up just once. Her reaction was a dramatic storm of betrayal. You don't trust me? She'd asked. I would never cheat. We didn't sign it. But what we did sign, about 2 years ago, when I started my firm, was a postnup. Quietly drafted. Barely discussed. She thought it was a business formality. It wasn't. And thanks to a clause I insisted on, in the event of infidelity, the unfaithful party forfeits all claims to jointly acquired assets, I had my first chess piece on the board. I stood there with the phone still in my hand, a smirk creeping onto my face like a shadow at sunrise. Oh, Elise, I said out loud to the quiet house. You played this game, but you didn't read the rules. I set her phone back down, right where she left it. Not out of kindness. Out of strategy. Because if she wanted to burn it all down, then I'd be the one handing her the match. You ever sit across from someone who's lying to your face and they have no idea you already know? It's like watching a magician try to pull a rabbit from an empty hat while you're holding the rabbit in your pocket. That was breakfast on Sunday. Elise strolled in wearing that soft smile she reserved for when she wanted to seem unbothered. She wore one of my old hoodies, probably trying to dial up the nostalgia points. I was at the table, pretending to scroll my phone, already showered, shaved, dressed. Calm. Morning, she said, pouring herself coffee like it wasn't the same hand that had been texting her boyfriend from across our bed just a week ago. Morning, I replied. Sleep okay? She nodded. Did you eat? Not yet. She sat across from me, legs curled under her like she didn't have a secret lover fantasizing about my side of the closet. I've been thinking about Friday night. Oh, yeah. She took a sip, watching me over the rim. I didn't say everything I meant to. It came out clumsy. I thought it was pretty clear. I smiled politely. You need to feel alive again. You've been drifting. Davis makes you feel things. I got the outline. She winced slightly but kept her composure. I didn't want to hurt you. Too late for that. I set my phone down. But I appreciate the update. She leaned forward, dropping her voice. I'm not moving in with him, you know? Of course not, I said. That wouldn't be smart. Not yet. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. She tilted her head. What does that mean? I shrugged. Nothing. Just thinking out loud. Here's the thing about betrayal. When you're in the middle of it, you think revenge looks like a scene from a thriller, slamming doors, loud confrontations, shouting matches and rainstorms. But the best revenge? It's spreadsheets. It's phone records. It's passwords in ink and witnesses who owe you favors. See, Elise and I were what you'd call financially entangled. The house was in my name, the car's in hers. The business? All mine, but she had a seat on the board for optics. She never showed up to meetings, but she got the title. Because at the time, I thought love was trust. Rookie mistake. So I spent the next 2 days cleaning house. Quietly. Thoroughly. I pulled her access from the firm. Didn't alert her, just rerouted the permissions. HR flagged her as inactive board presence pending ethics review. Legal helped me draft the memo. They didn't ask why. Some of them probably already knew. I checked our joint accounts. 3 transfers in the last 60 days, small amounts, but not subtle. All to a checking account I didn't recognize. Guess who's been funding wine dates and hotel rooms with our grocery budget? I froze the joint card. Transferred the funds to a trust in my name. Technically, she still had hers, but it was now running on fumes and goodwill. Then I visited my old friend Daniel, an attorney with a memory like a steel trap and a grudge against cheating spouses. His ex-wife ran off with his tennis coach. He now practices law like it's bloodsport. I've got receipts, I told him. He didn't smile. Just nodded. Then we'll make this surgical. By Tuesday, Elise still hadn't noticed. She floated through the house like nothing was wrong, humming while she folded laundry, texting on her phone like I wasn't walking past her with the blueprint to her downfall printed and paper-clipped. We barely spoke. I let her set the tone. She'd mentioned Davis less now. Smart move. Maybe she sensed the energy shift. But she had no idea how deep the ice was under her feet. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Wednesday evening, she walked in holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I thought maybe we could talk. I raised an eyebrow. Sure. She poured generously, handed me a glass. I don't want things to get ugly between us. I've been thinking, maybe we can separate quietly, amicably. You know, keep things civil. No lawyers. I sipped my wine. You've been thinking a lot lately. She smiled. I just want us both to be happy. Right. I set my glass down. Quick question. How long have you been siphoning money into a second account? Her smile cracked. Just a hairline fracture. Excuse me. The transfers. I tracked them. Pretty clumsy, by the way. She blinked. You went through her finances? No, I said. I went through mine. You were just attached to them. Silence. Heavy. Elise, I said, tone flat. I know everything. I know about Davis. I know about the hotel receipts. I know about the messages. I know about the soon he'll be gone texts. Her face drained of color. You went through my phone? I backed up your phone. She stood, slowly. You can't. I can. I stood too. And I already did. She opened her mouth. Closed it. No words came out. I'm filing on Friday, I continued. Under the infidelity clause of our postnup. You remember the one you signed without reading? Yeah, that one. Her hands trembled slightly. You don't have to do this. We can fix it. Oh, now where are we again? She stepped forward. Logan, please. I shook my head. No tears. No bargaining. You made a choice. I'm just giving you the dignity of consequences. Then I walked past her. Quietly. Calmly. Like a man who's already packed the parachute. Friday didn't come. I brought it. See, there's a special kind of joy in doing something loud with a smile on your face. The kind of move that doesn't just end a chapter, it scorches the whole page, staples it to a court document, and mails it to every person who ever asked you, so how's married life? Friday morning, I woke up early. I put on my sharpest suit. Not the flashy one. The one Elise had said made me look dangerous in a courtroom kind of way. Funny how memory works. She was still asleep when I left. Peaceful, even. Like she hadn't spent the past 6 months cheating on the man paying her phone bill. I got to the office early. Greeted the receptionist. Nodded at people in the hall. No one had any idea what was coming. At 9 o'clock sharp, I walked into the glass conference room and called a staff meeting. Quick housekeeping, I said, standing at the head of the table. Just a few announcements. People sipped their coffee, waiting for some dull update about Q3 projections. Then I clicked the remote. The screen behind me lit up with an email thread. Elise and Davis. The subject line? Logan can't see past his own ego. He won't know a thing. The room went dead quiet. I scrolled slowly. Message after message. I didn't narrate. Didn't explain. I let their words do the work. Laughter about our marriage. Plans to ease Logan out. Even one from Davis saying, we'll get the firm if we play it right. You could have heard a pin drop on a shag carpet. Everything you're seeing, I said evenly, has been verified, backed up, and signed off by legal, including Elise's removal from the board effective immediately. A few jaws dropped. A couple staffers exchanged glances. One brave soul, Melanie from HR, raised a hand slowly. Elise was your wife, right? I nodded. Correct. Past tense applies now. The silence that followed was sacred. Reverent, even. The business equivalent of watching a magician pull a full-grown tiger out of a deck of cards. By the time I got back home, Elise was waiting. She stood in the kitchen like she was trying to blend into the cabinetry. Phone in hand. Eyes rimmed red, not from sadness, but from panic. I got a message from Kelly at your office, she said. She said you had a meeting. I opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of orange juice like this was just another Tuesday. Yeah, had to make some personnel changes. Her voice rose. You humiliated me. I turned. Slowly. No, Elise. You humiliated yourself. I just hosted the unveiling. She flinched. Took a step back. You didn't have to make it public. I didn't make it public, I said. I made it professional. You turned our home into a joke. I just turned the punchline around. She crossed her arms. You think you're the only one who's hurting? No, I said, setting my glass down. But I'm the only one who didn't lie about it. She stared at me like I'd grown horns. But underneath that, I saw something else. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of consequences. Elise had never actually believed she'd lose anything. Not the house. Not her name on the firm. And definitely not her reputation. But now? Now her friends were calling. Her inbox was full of confused questions. And Davis? Davis was ghosting her. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that Davis had gotten cold feet the moment things got real. The second my legal team sent out the cease and desist for intellectual property theft, his name was attached. Elise had mentioned future mergers between my firm and the new one they'd built. Turns out Davis didn't want to start a new firm anymore. Not when Elise came with baggage, a viral email thread, and zero equity. He went silent, blocked her number, left her out to dry. Which was funny, because I never lifted a finger against him. He buried himself. All I did was shine a light. I gave Elise 30 days to vacate the house. That wasn't a punishment, it was a kindness. I could have gone scorched earth. But part of me, the part that once planned our anniversary trips a year in advance, still didn't want to ruin her. Just remind her I could. The divorce papers? Ready and waiting. Filed under infidelity with intent to defraud. The judge wasn't just sympathetic, he was impressed. Said it was the cleanest evidentiary file he'd seen all year. Elise didn't contest it. She tried to. For about a day. Then my lawyer showed her the timeline, texts, hotel logs, financial records. All neat. All dated. All damning. After that, she signed. No house. No stake in the company. Just her name. And even that wasn't holding much weight anymore. The last conversation we had was 3 weeks later. She stopped me in the driveway. I was loading up the car for a weekend hike. Miles and I were going upstate to clear my head and eat poorly cooked meat by a fire. "Logan," she said, breath-catching like she'd rehearsed this, "do you ever think we could have worked it out if I told the truth?" I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I once loved. The woman who took me for granted like I was some household appliance. Sturdy. Quiet. Always there. And I said, "You weren't afraid I'd leave. You were afraid I'd stay and stop seeing you the way you wanted to be seen. That's what made you run. Not me. Not Davis. Just your reflection." She looked down. No tears. No defense. Just silence. I got in the car. Rolled down the window. "Elise," I said, "next time you want a fresh start, don't build it on someone else's life." And then I drove away. Not fast. Not with music blaring. Just calm. Collected. Like a man finally heading forward. I always thought closure would look like a dramatic speech. A final showdown. Maybe some tears, maybe a heartfelt apology that came too late. Turns out, closure sometimes looks like a notification on your phone. New message, Davis Mitchell. I stared at it for a moment. Not surprised. I'd been waiting. Elise was out of his life, and now he was floating in that awkward limbo where people with no backbone tend to land, somewhere between regret and revisionist history. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and looked out over my backyard. Birds chirping. Wind gently nudging the trees. Peace, finally. It wasn't just that Elise was gone. It was that I wasn't. I was still here. Still standing. Still me. But sharper. Less trusting, maybe. But wiser. Tempered. After a few minutes, I opened the message. "Hey man. Didn't expect to hear from Elise again after things got messy. She told me everything. Just wanted to say, no hard feelings. It wasn't supposed to go that way." I read it twice. Then once more just to enjoy the audacity. No hard feelings. Like he hadn't tried to hijack my marriage, my home, and my business with all the finesse of a toddler using scissors on drywall. I tapped out a reply. Thought about sending it. Instead, I copied it into notes. Let it marinate. Let it get cold. Because Davis needed more than a message. He needed the message. The kind that sticks. So I made a plan. 2 weeks later, Davis showed up at a networking event for mid-sized firms in the city. I didn't need to be there, but I made sure I was. Not to confront him. No, that would be theatrical. This wasn't theater. This was strategy. He spotted me halfway through the lunch mixer. He hesitated, gave me this half smile like we were former teammates who'd had a friendly scrap in the locker room. Then he walked over. "Logan," he said, hand extended. I looked at it, then at him, then back at my drink. "I read your message," I said flatly. "Yeah, I just thought it was time to clear the air." I nodded. "Funny thing, Davis. You know who clears the air? Smokestacks. You know what I do with smoke? Install ventilation and move on." He blinked. "I didn't mean to step on it." "Oh, you meant to step. You just didn't expect me to kick back." He chuckled awkwardly. "I get it. You're angry. I would be too." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm professionally fascinated. I watched you gamble a winning hand because you thought my silence meant weakness." He tried to pivot. "Honestly, Elise said you two were done. She told me it was just paperwork." "Sure. And I'm sure you believed her. Because liars attract listeners who need fiction to justify their cowardice." Now he was starting to shift. His charm was running out of script. So I leaned in, voice low, steady. "You didn't just cheat with my wife, Davis. You tried to build a future out of my blueprints. You thought you could inherit my life like it was a second-hand coat. Problem is, you don't know how to wear it." He straightened. "Look, man, I came here to make peace." "No, Davis. You came here hoping I'd validate your guilt with forgiveness so you could sleep better. But I'm not your sedative. I'm your footnote." He opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away. And just like that, I exhaled. Not because I won. Not because I had the last word. Because I realized I didn't need anything from him. Not an apology. Not remorse. Not even acknowledgement. I was free. Back home, the house felt different. Not in that eerie, post-breakup haunted way. It felt mine. Like it had exhaled with me. I'd repainted Elise's office the week after she moved out. Now it was a small gym. I boxed up the photos we took together, donated her mugs, and replaced the framed quote she hung in the hallway. She'd love quotes. "Love is patient. Love is kind" had been her favorite. I replaced it with a framed print that read, "Some bridges burn themselves. Let them. Clean. Simple. True." I'd been getting messages from friends, real ones. The ones who didn't vanish when the marriage imploded. They'd heard through the grapevine what went down. Most offered quiet support. Some offered whiskey. Miles offered both, along with a playlist called Songs to Delete a Marriage To. It was terrible and perfect. But more importantly, life was breathing again. I started taking piano lessons, something I'd always wanted to do. Took a cooking class. Signed up for a hiking group. Not to find myself or rebound. Just to remember that I was a person before I was a husband. And that person? He was still here. Bit bruised. A little colder. But whole. Then one afternoon, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. An actual handwritten letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Elise. Logan. I don't expect this to mean much to you anymore. Maybe you won't even read it. But I had to try. I owe you something I was never brave enough to give you when it mattered, the truth. I thought I could build a life with you and still chase every selfish instinct I had. I thought I could cheat quietly, lie smoothly, and you'd never notice. And when you did notice, I thought you'd crumble. But you didn't. You were steady. You were kind. You were everything I pretended I wanted until I had to actually be worthy of it. And I wasn't. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that I see you now. I see what I threw away. And I'm sorry. Take care of yourself. I hope one day someone sees you for what you truly are and treats you like it. Elise." I folded the letter neatly. Put it in a drawer. I didn't feel moved. I didn't feel angry. I felt confirmed. She finally saw what she lost. And that, I realized, was the real revenge. The weeks rolled on. Life began to settle like dust after a long storm. I started waking up without checking her side of the bed. I no longer counted time in before and after Elise. There was just now. And honestly, now wasn't so bad. Until Haley called. Haley was Elise's sister. Sharp, pragmatic, and always a little too honest for family gatherings. We hadn't spoken since the fallout. She'd wisely stayed out of the blast zone. She started soft. "Hey, Logan. I'm sorry to call like this. I just thought you should know." Never a good sentence to start with. She continued. "Elise is staying with Mom. Temporarily." Davis cut her off. "Let me guess," I said. He thought starting a relationship in the rubble of someone else's life might come with, I don't know, consequences? Haley sighed. "She's not doing great. Thought you might want to know." I didn't. But I thanked her anyway. Because I wasn't a monster. Still, part of me felt something cold and undeniable settle in my chest. Not pity. Not even satisfaction. Just distance. Elise wasn't my problem anymore. And I wasn't her safety net. It came in the form of a second letter. Typed. Neat. Titled plainly, "Logan's Character Reference." I found it in an envelope with a note from a lawyer I'd never heard of. Elise's lawyer. She was trying to get a new job. A good one. With a firm that did PR crisis work. The irony practically wrote itself. The letter was a request. "She's trying to rebuild," the attorney wrote. "If you could sign off on a statement attesting to her professional conduct during your marriage, it might help." I laughed. Out loud. Alone. They wanted me to vouch for her. After everything. After the lies, the cheating, the quiet coup against my sanity. She needed my word to get her reputation back. I sat with it. Slept on it. Thought long and hard. And then I wrote a letter. A short one. To whom it may concern. Elise is intelligent, articulate, and highly driven. I cannot speak to her recent choices, but I can confirm that she is very skilled at managing perceptions, even when the reality behind them is falling apart. Use your judgment accordingly. Logan. I sealed it. Sent it. Then I poured a drink and toasted the silence. My firm was growing. Slowly but surely. We landed a big account. Nothing flashy, but steady. Sustainable. I found purpose again in late nights at the office, solving problems, coaching the younger team members. It felt good to be useful. Then came the call. A new client. High profile. Needed a full renovation of a property in the city. I reviewed the file, scanned the names. One of the investors? Davis. Of course. I called the liaison. "I'll pass," I said. "You haven't even heard the terms." "I don't need to. I don't work with people who try to poach my life." There was a long pause. Then the voice on the other end chuckled awkwardly. "Well, that's direct." "Yeah," I said. "That's kind of my thing now." I hung up. Because healing isn't always about forgiveness. Sometimes, it's about choosing your peace over petty opportunities. Let him build his empire elsewhere. I was done giving him blueprints. 6 months later, I ran into Elise. At the grocery store, of all places. Right between the cereal and the toothpaste. She looked smaller. Not physically, just deflated. She had that look people wear when the world hasn't quite forgiven them, but they're still pretending it will. Logan, she said, like she'd been rehearsing it in her head for weeks. Elise, how are you? Better, I said. How about you? A pause. A weak smile. Trying. We stood there in the aisle, the silence stretching long enough to feel like a memory. Then she said it. I miss who we were. I nodded. Yeah, me too. But I didn't say, I miss you. Because I didn't. She stepped forward a little, like maybe there was a crack in the wall I'd built. But I stepped back. Politely. With dignity. Take care of yourself, I said. Then I walked away. Cart rolling. Shoulders steady. And just before turning the corner, I glanced back only once. Not to second guess. Just to remember the last time I'd look at her and feel nothing. Not love. Not hate. Just closure.